Hello, everyone. Welcome to Progress Junior Golf. My name is Steve Jackson, and this is Aaron Cox.
Evening, Steve. How is everyone?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, lovely and warm down here south. How's it up north?
It's sunny, but it probably wouldn't be as warm as it is down south.
No, it's been a little bit hot over the last few weeks or so, hasn't it? But we've all been enjoying it as far as the golfing point of view. So actually, having said that, we could all do with a little bit of rain on the golf course just to soften it up a little bit. So
that is true.
Right, now this is the 7th edition of the Progress Junior Golf Show in 2025 and the 69th episode ever. So we're certainly getting close to that 100 as we're moving along. Now tonight's show we're going to be talking about etiquette in junior golf. It's not for the first time. It's a huge subject, isn't it, Aaron? Lots of different aspects of that at all. Anything which immediately strikes you immediately when I say etiquette in junior golf?
Speed of play, when to be quiet, where to stand, and then also where to place your trolley when you're heading to the green for the next hole.
And we're not just talking about juniors here. We're going to be talking about parents, supporters, golf clubs, golf professionals, how you can get the best out of the juniors as far as their etiquette is concerned, and etiquette as well as far as those people we've just mentioned there as well, because it's not just about the golfers out on the golf course. There has to be some kind of etiquette, with people who organise competitions as well. We need to get the right message across and make sure that everyone is enjoying it out there. Now, to help us out, we've got a friend of mine. She's a teaching assistant at a school near me, and she's also a golfing mum. That's Jodi Varney. So a couple of different perspectives on it there, which is important, isn't it? Someone who can give it from a teacher's point of view, which as you are a teacher of golf. She doesn't teach golf at all. In fact, doesn't really come from a golfing background as well. But over the last 4 or 5 years, with her 2 sons moving and playing golf, she's had to take that teaching aspect and almost change it slightly as she goes out into the golf course.
It's almost like she's got to wear 2 hats, but the advantage that she's got is the fact that and she's going to take all of the teaching aspect from school and the etiquette of that, but then to put it into actually practice with her kids on the golf course. So I'm actually looking forward to hearing what she has to say from being a teaching assistant, but then now putting that practice into sport related and seeing how she's marrying it up.
Right, let's get straight on with it, and let's hear from Jodi first. We'll just get an introduction, then find out who she is and what she does. This is Jodi Varney.
My day job is as what is known as an HLTA, a higher level teaching assistant, and I'm also a trained Thrive practitioner. So that means that I work as a part of a mental health team, doing one-to-one and group interventions for a variety of reasons across the school. And as an HLTA, it means I step in and I teach if needs be across classrooms when teachers have to be out, or help within the classroom if needs be.
And from a golfing point of view, you're not a golf professional or a golf coach or a golf teacher, but you certainly have a role within golf, don't you?
No, so my role within golf is a golf parent, so a golf mum, not a golfer, not from a golfing family particularly. My father and my brother do play golf, but I wasn't brought up around it. But I am on the golf course a lot of the time with my 2 sons, who are now 14 and 10.
The beauty about that is the fact that you can come from it from 2 different perspectives. You can come from it from a teacher's point of view about how important it is to try and teach them the right things out on the golf course and things like that. But at the same time, you're a parent as well. So if it's your child who you're watching out there, it's I mean, how easy / difficult is it to do that for yourself?
I think it's been a real mixed bag, because being a non-golfer means that I've had a really steep learning curve into all of this. Miles started when he was about 10, just after lockdown, and I'm the one that attends all the competitions and all the training and all the coaching. So yes, sometimes I'm able to stand back and see it from the teaching perspective, should I say, or certainly probably more from the mental health side, actually. But other times, obviously, as a parent, it's you're stuck in and you're in the thick of it and just trying to help them get through whatever it might be on the course at that point in time.
That's a little bit of an introduction to Jodi then. From your point of view, Aaron, you're obviously a teaching professional. You've got to know, I guess, quite a lot of the parents who you do teach the juniors. Are any of those
Sure.
teachers? Is there anyone you spoke to about what they do and the role that they have?
Oh yeah, I've got a lot of various jobs across the parents that are all the kids I teach, and funnily enough, there is actually, oh God, I would say 2 to 3, maybe 4 parents that are actually school teachers. So it is quite cool to see how the feedback I get from them of how I'm doing in the ways of controlling the kids, or how I speak to the kids, what my tone is, what information and what language I'm using. So it is. I always ask him, and they ask me questions. I ask them questions. So it's kind of a bit of two-way street. I ask them about how they do this and that with these kind of kids, and then they ask me, or what do you do to do this and this? So it is to and fro, and I'm always asking questions about what situations they get into at school.
It's fascinating you mentioned that. That's probably rare, isn't it? Not necessarily from a coaching point of view, in the sense that you get the opportunity to tap into their brains, but there's probably a lot of kids' parents out there who don't really appreciate what a teacher does, do they?
No. Look, I went in. I've done many schools in the ways of going to teach golf, and obviously I get a snippet because I'm there for 1, 2, 2.5 hours. I take the kids. I'm like the fun, and then I hand them back to the boring old teachers. But the times that I spent at schools, I have a great respect for school teachers and what they do. It's almost like it's a thankless job. They don't get the praise that they should do. I don't like enough, just with the amount of hours that they have to put in, but just what they kind of, sometimes you could say this, and I say this respectfully, what they have to put up with, and how they have to try and handle so many situations. Now, I teach 80 kids a week, so I've got 80 different personalities that I have to try and deal with as well. Then I've got 160 parents' personalities as well. So I speak to the kids from kid to kid to kid to kid. I ask them different questions. I ask them how their school's going. Some kids are high school, some kids are really primary school. I ask them what the homework they're up to, and is it boring? Oh, have you got tests and assignments? I ask different questions, but I have to adapt myself to all of those different personalities. And again, then and especially these days, Steve, you have to throw in different in the ways of ADD, ADHD, learning difficulties. And so I don't like to say disabilities, but it's learning difficulties. So the kids learn different ways. So I then have to try and adapt my coaching around how they learn and how they can get 100% out of what I'm doing with golf.
Now, this podcast is about golf etiquette. We will go into a lot more detail about that, but we're deliberately talking more about teaching at the start of the podcast, and then we'll go into a few more details later. But the question I raised to you was, what does a teacher do? Let's find out from Jodi then. Let's let her explain what she does in her school.
I think COVID taught a lot of parents a lot of things about what happens in a school on a day-to-day basis. And I think if you have more than one child, you have a fair understanding of managing children. But yes, it's safe to say I think it would probably be helpful to have lots of parents come in and witness a day in school.
So what do you have to do? I mean, it's easy from my point of view as a parent of a child, in the sense of, when you're dealing with your own child, you can give them a telling off, and there's still the love there. But obviously, as a teacher, you have to, at times, I guess, you have to give them a telling off. But at the same time, is you have to take a step back and go, it's not my child.
Yeah, I think the reality of it is that most children succeed with boundaries, and that essentially is what most teaching boils down to. And if we're struggling with behaviours in class, we need to have those boundaries in place. We need to know what those boundaries are, but equally the children need to know what those boundaries are. and it's important that that is consistent, and it's important that they understand that. And that's, I think, is where the differences then come in from a teaching perspective. So there might be some children, for example, that need hard and fast boundaries, and you can be quite strong in how you might voice that. There are other children that might not respond to that at all, and actually you have to take a completely different approach. So, for example, I mean, as a parent, if take something completely out of context, but you wouldn't want your child falling off the cliff. So as a parent, you teach you then the boundary is they don't fall off the cliff. You don't want them to do that. The difference then in parenting is how you teach that. Some parents won't let them anywhere near a cliff. They wouldn't go for walks near the cliff. They wouldn't do anything. Other parents might explore teaching them. So they might take them to a cliff, near the edge of a cliff, and explain why they shouldn't go anywhere near it, so they get an understanding for it. Other parents may show them a video of what can happen if you fall off a cliff. So in understanding your child, and that's what, as teachers, I guess we have to very quickly try and get up to speed as to what's the best way to approach managing that behavior, and that will be different with every child.
You know, how long can it take sometimes to think, well, actually that does or doesn't work with that person, or that does or doesn't work with this person? How long does that take sometimes?
I would say for those teachers who are regularly with that class, which isn't my position in the school, I think probably within, say they're new into the school. For our school, it's year 3. Within the first couple of weeks, you've got a fairly good measure. Because in our school we're with them all day, every day. In my position as dipping in and out of classes, it obviously takes me a lot longer because I'm not in there consistently. But as a school, that's where we have systems to note it down, etc., etc., and we were able to share that information. But I would say it can take some children. You know, I'm still working them out, and I've worked with them for 2 years. And as parents, I think we experience that as well. You think you might know it, you've got a handle on something, and actually the next week it's changed, especially when they're teenagers.
I don't know whether you've ever used a falling off the cliff analogy there before when you've been talking about kids there, Aaron, at all, or not whether you've been coaching them. But right, the point that she was making there, and it's something you just raised a little earlier as well, is trying to get the best out of them. And she's in a similar position yourself in the sense that she sees them on a regular basis, but not the same kids all the time. And that's the process that you have as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So she brought up some really, really interesting points, which I was like sitting here going, yep. I was massive points that she was talking about was boundaries. Every kid's different, and how they react to when you're teaching them those boundaries. Now, if I then turn that straight into golf, and in my golf classes, when I have a new kid come in, or we start a new class or whatever, I explain to them that, look, I want the kids to have fun, but they're here to learn. So then if they start getting out of line and then start making a hassle for me and putting pressure on other kids, or they're upsetting other kids or distracting the other kids, depends on the style of them and their personality. I then discipline them by either being quite loud and vocal, or walking up to them very closely and pulling them aside and having a very quiet word in their ear, and be quite stern with those words, almost like a whisper. So you're not making a scene. You're not making them uncomfortable in the ways of everyone's all of a sudden looking over. You get your point across very, very forcefully, but very calmly and respectfully. Other kids, you can yell at from 2 bays away, going, "Hey, come on, don't do that." And all of a sudden they'll be like, "Oh, sorry, Aaron." So once you've got their attention of what boundary they've got and where that wall is, and obviously I wouldn't use the cliff, but I understand the analogy that she's trying to create. Once they know that boundary, they'll push that line as much as they can, because they'll know where I then go, no, that's not acceptable.
All right, we're going to hear a little bit more from Jodi. The question I raised with Jodi is playing a round of golf similar to a day at school? And you use the word there, learning, and I said this to her, is the fact that is that still a learning experience? So this is what she had to say.
I think that's absolutely the case, and I think that's dependent on, from my point of view, I think that's dependent on how they're learning, where they're learning, and who they're learning with, and that essentially is no different in a school, I guess, because if they're not out consistently, for example, with a parent or a coach who is teaching them the rules, who is teaching them the etiquette and the code of conduct. So there's that for a start. And there's the consistency in that as well. So I think sometimes it's quite easy for parents to not keep up with that, especially if they're a little bit older. You might not accompany them on the golf course all the time. You might be able to drop them off. And so do they understand that they need to know these things? And so I think unless the parent or the coach or whoever it is that goes out with them is continually, to a degree, explaining rules to them, can we expect them to know them and understand them? Can we expect them to understand that they're still learning and they've got lots to learn?
No, the question I raised with Jodi was talking about the question I raised with Jodi was talking about competitions. And we were talking with yourself there about your coaching sessions, and I suppose it's very similar in the sense of you mentioned there about some kids who push the boundaries. Do you deliberately put them in groups whereby you perhaps put them with someone a little bit older, a bit more mature, who can help them out and teach them the right things to do?
Yeah, so in my classes, I normally, when I'm at them, well, currently right now, obviously with the good weather, I've got the kids out actually playing on my kids' course. So what I do is I actually if I've got a kid who is a little bit disruptive and can push boundaries and can distract, I put them with someone who's a really good person, a really good kid who is down the line, wants to learn, is quiet, meticulous about how they do it. So then what I'm getting them to see is if they're the ones if they see another kid being quiet, being very calm, and being respectful, you see a gentle shift in how they act. And that's what I do. But also then I get younger kids with older kids. I do that as well to get the younger kids almost mentored by my older kids. So I have my older academy kids who I then instruct to go, hey, I want you to look after them. I want you to show them the ropes. They take on a bit of a mentoring kind of role, and they actually get a kick out of it because they feel like they're helping. But yeah, that's if you can get the kids to really focus better by themselves, then you're winning.
Just so people are aware, and I don't suppose your coaching sessions are that much different from most professional golfers when they do junior coaching. How much involvement do the parents have with those coaching sessions?
So the good thing that I've got a great relationship with a lot of the parents, almost all of the parents, because I make sure I do. That's just me. I make sure that I have really good relationships with the parents. So then when I've got control of their kids in classes, that I've got full control. So then when the classes when I've got the classes, say on the kids course, obviously it's a bit more open. The kids are then playing. The parents are just walking around, having minimal input, but their input, the minimal input that they have is about not running, when to walk, when to be quiet, when to be still. So they're kind of helping me. When you're on the range and I've got the kids in the bays, they sit back, I kind of set stern rules, and then the kids follow those rules.
The reason why I asked the question is the fact that obviously you've empowered the juniors, the older juniors, to take on that responsibility, if you like.
Yep.
Enforcing the rules with the younger kids. Also, do you give the parents the opportunity to do that as well, but make sure that they know that it's your rules, it's the golf rules, it's the etiquette that you are setting, they know as well?
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So I give them tips and tools, topics to help me with them while they're playing out in the kids' course during class. So yes, no, I get the parents to help, but also I make sure, and this is, I suppose, in a way, a big thing for me, is that when the kids are out in the course playing, even in class, I make sure the kids know that for that class and at that time that they're here, their parents are here to help and help me. They're not here just to have a go at their child. So it's an advice sequence. It's an advice situation where the parents help me by helping the kids, and the kids don't take it as, oh, I'm getting in trouble.
Right, now we're going to talk a lot about the different types of etiquette and the different aspects of it. Let's hear, for one of the points I put to Jodi was etiquette. It's not just about, telling people off, making sure that they do the right behavior. It can also be about safety as well and getting more enjoyment out of the game. And how important is that? This is the point that I raised with Jodi.
I'm a big believer in just speaking with a child. And that means that if you're giving them let's call it a telling off so that we're clear, they've done something wrong on the course. If you explain to them, as you said, that it's about safety or why we don't do it, then generally you get them bought in to understanding that behavior, and generally then they won't do it again. But it also does come back to, have they ever learnt that? Has anyone ever told them that? If you look on most club websites, this would be the same with most sports, there is a code of conduct. Have I ever shown my boys the code of conduct for their club? Possibly not. I've definitely talked to them about it and they know the rules, but maybe they've never been shown, so they don't know that they can't do X, Y, Z. So that's one part of it. But I think if you can engage with that child and ask them, one, ask them what they know, two, ask them, why do you think we're explaining it to you? Then I think that helps for them to better understand it. So if we're saying, look, you need to stand to that side, it's to keep you safe. Do you understand why that is? It's because I might get hit by the ball, or you get the chance to explain. Generally, just by talking to the child, instead of thinking, right, they just need to be told, you get a better response.
It's interesting you use the code of conduct was the phrase that you used, and I use, and the name of the podcast is Golf Etiquette. I think golf etiquette gets a bit of a bad reputation just for the wording there, because it sounds as if it's almost like you're not allowed to do this at a golf course. That's the etiquette of golf. How dare you do that? Whereby it's from my point of view, it's just part of the learning experience. Do you think it does get a bad reputation?
In my opinion, I quite like the fact that there are they're very clear on those boundaries. I think some clubs definitely are, their choice of wording is different to some, and some have very strong wording on it. But that's no different to essentially being at work, being in a school. You have to wear your school uniform, otherwise you get sent home. You have to turn up to your job on time, otherwise you might get fired. So I don't think that, if we look at the bigger picture of just how we function day to day and operate as a community in our job place, even at home, those rules exist in most places. So I think having an understanding of that isn't a bad thing. Do we word it differently? Possibly, and possibly some clubs have gone down that route. I noticed the word, for example, banter in one of our local clubs, and it's in their code of conduct, and it says banter is allowed, but be mindful of who's around you. That's not a word I would generally think to see in a code of conduct. But that's making it more approachable for younger members. They can understand it better, and so maybe it's the wording around it we need to look at, as opposed to the fact that it is a rule book or a code of conduct.
We've all been in a golf clubhouse where they said you've got to take your shoes off before you walk in. You've got to take your cap off. You've got to, you know, it almost feels as if you're almost scared to walk into these places because one step in the wrong direction and I'm going to get told off really for next to nothing. You know, do you think that the industry really needs to learn a few things about that?
I think there's been a few articles recently, I think, about clothing for professionals and what they're wearing on the course. And I laugh because actually only a couple of weeks ago, my eldest asked me to not turn up to the golf club in my flip-flops. And he said, if you're coming to, and that's not to go into the clubhouse necessarily. But actually, for me, certainly that part of it means that he's taking an element of pride in it. And actually, he knows that he needs to look smart. And I think that does give them an element of pride. And that's part of golf. Do I think it could ease up a little bit? Potentially. You know, it's not necessarily accessible for everyone to be able to buy the right clothing, have the right shoes, have changes of shoes. So yes, it potentially makes it a little less accessible. But I think there's an element of people take pride in the fact that there are some of those rules in place.
So lots of things covered there. And okay, the first question, one of the first questions I raised, Paul, whether it was a little controversial what I said, but does golf etiquette get a bit of a bad reputation, just the wording of what it sounds like?
I don't think it does. It's how it's interpreted, but also it's how it's brought across, because obviously she made a few really good comments and points there about how it's the say code of conduct. I think that's, to a kid, yes, that could be intimidating, especially with those kind of words. The biggest things that I was really like going, yep, I agree, is it's how when I'm teaching the kids about being out on course, when we do the classes on course, the biggest thing that I was agreeing with exactly how I do it is that I talk to the kids, I don't speak down to them. I talk to the kids about what they're doing, why they shouldn't do it, why you don't do it. So it's the why you shouldn't do it, and you get them to understand that of why. So I do exactly, I say exactly how she worded it. I explain, in the ways of like kids say even on my kids course, right, no running. Right, well, why don't you run? Like, why can't we run on the golf course? Well, one, because you've got to make sure that you keep an eye on who's hitting the golf ball next and where their ball is, so you don't get in front, so then you don't get hit by a golf ball. Number two, we want to walk, because when we're walking, we want to walk on the green. We don't want to scuff the green and damage the green. So if you run and you damage the green, you're damaging the green not only for yourself, but you're damaging the green for every other kid that plays the course. Does that make sense? Do you understand that? And they go, oh yeah, okay. I always say, does that make sense? Do you understand? Because do you understand is kind of like I'm speaking down to the kids. I always make an effort to say, does that make sense? Because if it makes sense, I'm asking them a question. I'm not actually saying, hey, mate, do you understand what I'm saying? You're doing something wrong. So it can become that I'm speaking down to them very quickly. Yeah, that's, I think, the biggest thing in what there. But then when she moved on to a point, I'll just jump one point through. In the ways of golf club etiquette, golf clubs have so got to relax. Oh my God. Like having to take shoes off, like that. We are not in the 1960s, right? I'm pretty sure in the 2025 we could relax the idea of shoes being worn, when I reckon more than 60% of golf shoes sold now are spikeless. So I don't understand what soft spikes, are really going to do to a carpet of a golf club. Hat, I still agree. I'm old school. I don't wear shorts. I'm a golf pro. I have never worn shorts. I will never wear shorts. A PJ professional and a golf professional never wears shorts. So I don't agree what the DP World Tour and do with allowing the guys to wear shorts. Doesn't matter if it's 35 degrees. You're wearing pants. You're a professional. This is your job. But that's just me. Yeah.
Okay, what about hoodies? I mean, if we talk, we are going to go into a lot more detail about some of these subjects there. But if we're talking dress code, what about things like hoodies? Because obviously that's become more now.
Hoodies, I am so okay with. I'm the biggest stickler I have is a collared shirt. I'm old school in the ways of collared shirt, either dress shorts or pants. And that's the only thing that I kind of like, because I have academy clothing. So I have my uniform clothing for my academy. So I try and get the parents to, if they can't afford your Adidas's, your Titleist FootJoys, your golf clothing, they are quite expensive. And even for the kids. So I have my own uniforms. And like I've got my golf shirts are like 19 pounds, like 19, 20 quid. So I try and get the kids into their own little polos with the academy on it, and that sense of pride. So just rolling into what Vicky was talking about, a sense of pride. It's their golf club, it's their golf course. And don't wear flip flops. That was really cool of her kid to tell her don't rock up in flip flops.
Getting told off by a child, I like that. Right. Now, before I spoke to Jodi, she sent me a message saying she'd love to come on the podcast, but she just wanted to get an idea about what questions I was going to ask her. Now, if I'm being honest with her, and I said I really don't know. Now, that was a little bit of a white lie, because I did have one question I wanted to ask her, and this was it, and this was her response.
I'm a big believer in just speaking with a child, and that means that if you're giving them let's call it a telling off so that we're clear.
Sorry, wrong video. This is the video. As a teacher, has a parent ever come up to you and said, I'd like to come into school one day and sit with you in the class and see you in school? Has anyone ever done that? No. And if they did, what would your reaction be?
I would love it.
Okay. How likely is it that they're ever going to do that, though?
Not ever, no. I would think.
Okay. So
not well ever, but yeah, unlikely.
Yeah. So bearing in mind that we've obviously chatted about out on the golf course can be treated like a learning experience. Why do the kids' parents, our supporters, or whoever it happens to be, why do you think they feel as if they have to be a teacher out on the golf course? Because they don't go into school, they don't ask you to go and sit in your lessons and be a teacher at school, but yet on a golf course they almost feel as if they have to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Why is that?
That's a really good question, and I think we've discussed before, I come at it with a slightly different approach because I'm not a golfer. So actually for me, the learning for my boys on the course doesn't come from me helping them with their golf. I can't help them with their golf. I can help them with the rules and my limited understanding of it. Does it come down to expectations and what parents expect of their children on the course? Possibly. Are parents expecting their children to go out and perform at their best every single time? Because they, largely when they're in these tours, it's competition. And so do parents feel that they need to be there to ensure that their children are doing the best every time? Is that helpful? Does it mean the children do their best every time?
I always think it's fascinating the fact that you as someone who no golf background, as in doesn't play the game, and with the greatest respect, probably doesn't know how hard it is. Got a better understanding over the last few years about how difficult it is, but perhaps when you first started out, didn't really know. So in that respect, you can probably come when you first. Well, you tell me whether it was the case when you two boys started playing the game. Were you like, why did you hit that shot?
Yeah.
Were you asking those questions? Well, surely you knew not to do that. Were you having to like stop yourself from saying those types of things?
I think there was probably an element of that. I am a big believer personally of them learning for themselves, not necessarily from their own mistakes, but learning for themselves. So I've got better at that for sure. So yes, I think there was definitely an element of that, but probably because I knew that I didn't play golf, I knew that actually I didn't really have much standing on those kind of comments.
So obviously the point I raised there was
wow.
about parents. Okay, so I'm going to pick on you here, Aaron. You're the golf professional, yeah. The parents are sometimes around you with the coaching, and then when you send the kids off and you say, okay, and they say, oh, our child's going to be playing this competition, right? How often do you actually go with that parent and that junior and walk around with them when they play in a competition? Be honest. How often would you do that?
Well, the only times that I've actually ever done that, Steve, was one when obviously I locked horns with. Well, I saw you over in Ireland, and I was following one of my league juniors playing in the Champions.
Yeah.
That was pretty much the only time that I've really followed him around. So no, not very often.
Okay. So the follow-up question to that is, I suspected you were going to come up with a very similar answer there, because that will be the answer with most professionals, wouldn't it? With
sure.
coaching, because obviously you just don't have the time to walk around with the player. Okay. So when they leave you in your coaching session, and I've had this conversation with not just one parent, lots of parents, where they've said, that's what the coach has told us to tell our child when they're out on the golf course, but they take it too literally, and they are literally coaching them on the basis of what the coach has told them, and they're doing it in competitions. How do you? Surely that's not a message you are telling those parents. Go out there and coach them in the competition.
Absolutely not. So I think this look, we go back a podcast or two back to when, like, parenting, like when we did that parents podcast. And again, like, she was just bringing up such, like, you asked a great question, right? You asked a brilliant question. Why do parents, when they're out on the golf course, feel the need to turn into a teacher on the golf course when they've got no teaching experience, whether it's golf or being a school teacher, and ask those silly questions? And they are, Steve, very silly questions. Oh, why'd you do that? The biggest thing is, instead of asking, why did you do that? Because there is absolutely no intention of them trying to do that. So that's why it's a silly question. What the question should be is, what was different from the last shot? That's the key. But also, the parents have got to sit back, and as she rightfully said as well, the parents are getting involved because of expectations. And I think, and as I said, we go back to that whole podcast we did on parenting, and the pressure that is put on kids of today on the golf course to perform every time. Now, you asked Tiger Woods, did he win every event he played? All right, he won a lot. Sure, he won 82 events worldwide, and he won 15 majors. But that's not every event he played. So if the best man, the GOAT, Tiger Woods, one of the best players to ever live in my lifetime, next to obviously the great Jack Nicklaus, that when I was very young watched him, and Greg Norman, my idol. If they can't do it week in, week out, why are parents of today expecting their kids to go out and perform every time? And that's the big question that we'll never get a proper answer to, Steve.
Right. This podcast is we've covered a lot on parenting, but parenting etiquette is part of the parenting process.
Yes.
Okay. Just one more point there from Jodi then, and we were talking about the psychological effect that a parent's etiquette can have on a junior golfer. This is what Jodi had to say about
that. The more competitions I attend, and obviously I've spent a lot of time on the course with my eldest, who now goes out on his own and has a much better understanding of his own capabilities, straight back to it with my youngest, who needs me to be out with him. He also needs emotional support, and actually I think from a mental health point of view, what I witness most is potentially a lack of understanding but just their own understanding of how their child operates. So what I mean by that is that, do you know, for example, how your child responds when they haven't hit a good shot? Actually, what do they need? Have you spoken to them? Have you asked them what happens at home when they get really frustrated or disappointed in something? Do you lower your voice, coach them through it, do you give them a bit of space and let them kind of work things out by themselves? Or are you straight on them? You shouldn't have done that. You need to do this, blah, blah, blah. And that's no different on the golf course, really. And actually, the more you understand your child, the easier it becomes, because you know when to walk away. And I've seen lots of parents tutting. I've seen lots of parents berating their children over their shots. Now, generally speaking, that child is going to feel bad enough anyway. If they've hit a naff shot, they're going to be giving themselves the hardest time. 1, because they didn't want to do it. 2, because they feel embarrassed. 3, they probably feel that they've let themselves down a bit. And actually, there's probably a 4th in there if they've got the parent out. They probably feel like they've let you down. And they're going through all those emotions at that point. You then need to understand, I think, as a parent, what is the best response to that, and not have that knee-jerk reaction, which is much easier said than done. We all know that. And I guess that's the benefit of then doing the job I do, is that I'm working with that all the time. I'm working with that constantly, and I'm always on my toes because I have different children that I'm trying to understand and apply that to. So I think what I would like to see more of is maybe those conversations off the course, so that once you're on the course and in that pressured environment, you both know how to cope with each other. You both know what you need. The child has voiced what they want from you. If they've said, can you help me with that shot? And it's allowed within the competition, sure. If they've said, do you know what, I just want to get on and play, then let them play.
Yeah, that's, God, Steve, you need to get Jodi on more often.
Well, if I tell you, I think you might even seen some of the emails I send out to people before we have an event. So we've got an event on Sunday. Normally send an email out to them about instructions of what's taking place on the Sunday. You know, give them the address of the golf course, what the format is, and one of the things I put on there is, as far as caddying is concerned, caddies are allowed for some of the higher handicap and some of the younger kids. But the last line says, but just let them play. And Jodi, I might even use that as one of my clips on my website, because it's so true, isn't it?
Oh, very much so. Like, it's the same. The kids have got to understand from a young age. And look, again, she's just rattled off so many things. Like, I was like, You probably see me in the background behind the video, Steve, and I'm just going like this one, going like smiling. But it's important to note what she kind of said there was, as a parent, this is also revolving around etiquette as well, because the etiquette on the golf course of a parent is that you can't be, for most events now across county and even high level events, parents can't be within 50 yards, which means they're not going to be yelling out, are they? Because they're going to be making a scene. She said some things very, very, very poignant, was the fact that the kids have hit a bad shot. They feel bad enough as it is. They're trying to figure out why they did that, why that happened. You don't need to go in there and either berate them or reasons of what they've done wrong when they feel bad enough as it is. You've got to let them take it in. Give them that 30 seconds breathing space to actually put the club away and start walking. Get away from that situation. And then if they look to you, look as positive reinforcement, not negative. If they've hit a poor shot, the etiquette of a parent is to continually support their child no matter what. And as she rightfully said, learning your child and being able to understand of when they need that help makes it obviously a lot easier. Yeah, again, she said, it's easier said than done. But moving that into the etiquette field is that if they hit a bad shot and their knee-jerk reaction is to look straight at you, that's worrying.
Okay, let's have another part from Jodi. Then you mentioned about how it's not easy to try and react in the right way. Let's hear what Jodi's advice is and how you can react in the right way.
The best technique for me is to not be near them. because actually if you're not near them and you're not within earshot, then you can say all those things under your breath and they and then the wiser. But I think, for me personally, I think physically removing yourself, but that also I think is a really fine line. Again, understanding what support they need. You can be a parent who stands off, isn't showing the interest, for example, but actually, and I've seen this before, that child really wants that approval from that parent. They're looking to them every shot because maybe that's what they're used to. Maybe they're always out with their parent. Maybe they haven't played when they're kind of separated a bit, and actually they haven't understood how to kind of cope with things on their own on the course yet. So it's a really fine line, I think, of being close enough, being far enough away. But again, I go back to the talking to your child. I think if you have those conversations with your child before those situations, obviously golf, you're going to do it, you're doing it regularly. Whilst you're out with them, have those conversations about, well, what would we do here? Okay, so how would you handle it if you're on your own? What club are you going to choose? Would you choose that? All right, we'll try it, see. What are you going to do if you miss that bunker shot? If you hit that ball 6 times, you're still not out of the bunker. What's the best thing for you to do? And do you want me to say anything or not? My eldest still likes a sweet, still likes a sugar hit. If things are going really badly, he would prefer that he's around, not me now because he doesn't want me out there, but he needs a sugar hit. My youngest doesn't want me anywhere near him, doesn't want me to comment, doesn't want me to look at him, just wants me out of the way. But I've learnt it.
It's a balancing act, isn't it? It's the balancing act between being there, but also not being there, even though you are there.
It is a fine line, but what you'll find, and Jodi would mention it very, very well there. She's obviously got the 2 kids, one younger, one older. And it's quite rare that you get this with the younger one saying, "Hey, Mum, I don't want you anywhere near me. Just leave me alone," which is very rare because normally the younger kids, they want that parent around to lift them up if they have a bad hold, them to lift them up. The older kids, they couldn't care less. They just want the parents as far away from them as possible. And they don't look to the parents for approval or that. But if the kids have been taught about from their parents of every shot they hit has to be approved by mum or dad, that's hard to get them out of because then they have to go out by themselves. And if then you're not around or you're 50 or 100 yards away, they can't directly see you. Then that's a little worrying because then they have to then relearn to do all of that themselves. But I loved what she said there in the ways of opening up the conversation or opening up the communication in the ways of, okay, what do you want to do here? Why do you want to do that? And what's it going to do for you if you hit it this way? And will it benefit you? What you're doing is you're opening up the communication status is you're both there, not parent and junior or parent and kid. So you asking a question, whether you're a golfer or a non-golfer parent, if you're asking the question from a level playing field of what do you want to do, why do you want to do that, and what club do you want to hit, you're getting them to take control of the situation and tell you, this is what I want to do, this is how I'm going to do it, this is why I'm going to do it. It just gives them a bit more confidence in what they're doing.
Right, we're going to delve a lot more into trying to find some solutions of possible issues with etiquette and how to improve it and that type of thing as well. But there was one final factor which I did raise with Jodi, and it's an important factor which we are going to have to talk about once we hear from Jodi. This was it. Right, one last thing then, and it's a word which you mentioned earlier, and it's such a big word. Teenager. How do you deal with a teenager? Because you know the things which go on in a teenager's brain, we as adults now couldn't even try and even come close to understanding what goes on in their brain. So how do you deal with that? And you have obviously you've had a son who's gone through those becoming a teenager. You've got one who's about to approach that as well, so you're going to have to deal with it again, I'm afraid.
Thanks,
How do you, and how when they're out on the golf course, do you have to go, look, it is a teenager, it's nothing, they're not doing it on purpose, they just can't help it on occasions?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? And no teenager is the same, no month is the same, no week is the same potentially with teenagers. But again, I think it just it goes back to keeping that dialogue open, and them knowing that you're there to support them, whatever that looks like to them. And actually in those moments, if they are really frustrated or if they have done something wrong, sometimes it's you taking a deep breath. It's us as the parents, just, a big intake and an exhale and just walking away, because actually sometimes that's the best thing that can be done. Sometimes, as a parent, no matter what you say, it'll be the wrong thing. No matter what look you give, it'll be the wrong thing. We both know parents that get blamed for a good score, that get blamed for a bad score, that get blamed if it rains, and we'll all go through that myriad of things. But actually, if you can keep calm, and if you can be the grown-up and keep a cool head, then eventually I think you find they sort of simmer down, and either they'll come to you or they won't. But I think it's us showing them that they don't need to go through all those range of emotions. They can just take a breath, and teaching them how to move. We talked about this lots of times, that what golf teaches people about resilience, and how helpful it is for mental health, because they have to learn those tasks. They have to be able to cope with something going wrong. They have to be able to cope with other players maybe not getting things right all the time. They have to be supportive. So it's a lot to take on board, but actually all of that will help them hugely in the future, the quicker they can learn it. So teach them that you can just take a breath, and that you can move on from things.
Dealing with teenagers, isn't it fun, Aaron?
Well, I've got 11 years up my sleeve, Steve, with my son nearly turning 3. So I've got a little bit of time to get a little bit more experience in that area. But the lucky thing that I've got here is I teach about 20 or 30 teenagers from ages literally 13 all the way to like 17. So I kind of see it on a weekly basis, and gives me that experience that I need now. But again, she makes some really, really good points, and I agree wholeheartedly. And obviously, she's got way more experience in the ways of parenting than I do. But in the ways of, from me being coach, the adult situation, calming everything down and bringing the heart rate down, bringing the blood pressure down, and I try and get the kids to understand at the end of the day, when you play golf, will you wake up tomorrow morning? And they go, well, yeah. I go, have you got school on? They go, yeah, well, yeah, it's Monday tomorrow. Yeah, I'm at school tomorrow. Oh, so you will wake up, you will go to school. So today won't mean anything. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. I suppose. So isn't golf just a game that you'll come back out tomorrow night and keep playing anyway? So it's how you open that dialogue. And again, she made such great points there about opening the communication, letting them, I think from a teenager's point of view, letting them come to you. And as I said in the last podcast with the parenting, that I've actually told a lot of my parents that good, bad, or ugly, on the way home after a game of golf, don't open your mouth about the game until they do. So it could be a very quiet road trip home, very, very quiet. You've got to let them open that dialogue and open that communication. As soon as you start, they see it as it's not, but they see it as an attack, as they're speaking down to me. I've done this wrong. I've done that wrong. I didn't do this great. It's an attack from mum or dad, the parent. You're trying to be supportive. So if you let them start talking about it, they feel comfortable talking to you about it.
Right. Now, I spoke to Jodi. It was actually a couple of weeks ago that I did the interview with Jodi. There was a couple of instances of an event which took place on Sunday, nothing to do with Jodi or anything like that. But we will come to that later, because Jodi does get mentioned, or one of her sons does get mentioned in the news a bit later. Right. Now, I did say let's try and find some solutions then, because there were some common topics which crop up as far as etiquette is concerned in junior golf. So let's talk about course etiquette then. So the first thing we have to bring in straight away is safety, because safety is the most important thing. So how do you make sure that the golfer, when they go out there, they've got the right etiquette to make sure they are safe on a golf course? And I suppose the main thing, first of all, is don't get harmed. And obviously the thing that you can easily get harmed with is by being hit with a golf ball.
That's correct.
How do you avoid that?
So even with all my comps and all that stuff on the kids course, obviously you've got parents, you've got kids, you've got players, you've got grandparents out there as well. So the biggest thing I speak directly to the kids is that you always stay behind other players when they hit their shots. If you're behind the player, you'll never get hit by a golf ball. If you're in front, you may get hit by a golf ball. So you walk together. And whoever's the ball's the furthest away from the hole always hits first, and you stand right in line with them or just back for them. That's the biggest thing I always say from a safety point of view. And then when I play with my kids' course, the way it is, it's a long fairway. It's pretty narrow. It's only about 40 yards wide. When I've got my comps on, and I know there's a lot of parents out there, because the tees are quite, we always hit to one kind of way. I always say to the parents, when you're standing on the tee, stand on the right side of the tee on the tree line, keeps the middle of the golf course clear. Because if there's any array shots, then at least the golf ball won't go into the parents and into anyone to be harmed. So touching wood, currently 5 years in, I still haven't had any major injuries or anyone getting majorly hit. But yes, safety is a big one.
And if you do hit a shot which might go close to someone, what do you do?
I always say to the kids, if you hit a shot and the ball's going in any kind of direction near a person or people, you call the word 4 as loud as you possibly can.
Okay, and you've seen this. You watch a lot of professional golf on the television, and I've seen it, and a lot of kids would have seen it as well. You'll see the professional golfer will not shout 4.
And
why is that? Why is that?
I really hate that. Because I think they've got lazy especially if you're looking at PGA Tour and the DP World and those kind of guys. I think they get lazy because you've got so many ball spotters and you've got so many marshals. Because if you look at the PGA Tour, there's always, you can see behind the players, guys with 2 boards with like cross when they're getting ready to hit, and then they're doing this, or they're doing this, or they're doing that. So the pros will put their club up and do that, but they won't call. Now, I think that's damn right disrespectful, lazy, to be brutally honest with you. Even if it's not me hitting the shot, and I see a golf ball hit by my playing partner, and it's going in the general direction of the other people, I don't care. I'm yelling 4 because I think it's respectable and it's due courteous for those people down the fairway that a golf ball is coming in their direction.
Now, if I told you as well that myself and Ian were doing the English under 18s championship, like the weekend, we're doing live commentary on live content, and there was players in that event whereby we're hitting tee shots and the ball was going, and they would just do that or that. Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself,
who's looking?
Yes.
No one.
Yeah. And if they're not looking, how do they know? Them doing that and saying left or what? It's.
What does it mean?
Yes. So the bad habits can get into even the very, very good players. That
education from a young age has to be enforced, but I think that has to be re-looked at by England Golf, your amateur bodies, your PGA Tours, your professional levels. These guys, if they're hitting a golf ball, it's out of your duty of care on the golf course as a player. If your ball goes anywhere near in the vicinity of people, of a human being, you call 4, you call something, at the loudest possible part of your voice to give them a heads up that something is coming in their direction.
Right. Bunkers. Ball marks on greens, divots.
Yep, pitch marks,
tell me what the golf etiquette is on all three of those.
Right. So bunkers, making sure the bunkers are raked. And then now it depends on the golf course again, but 9 times out of 10, you'll get into this situation. When you rake the bunker and you get to the edge, you toss the rake back into the center of the bunker in the direction of play. That's a major one. You don't want to leave the rake on the side of the bunker, just inside the bunker, on the outside of the bunker. You want the rake in the middle on the flattest part possible. That's number one. Number 2, you're looking at pitch marks. If you're playing a shots and they come in and make a pitch mark, what that's actually doing is it's bruising the green. If it's not repaired, that grass, the grass at the bottom of that pitch mark dies because you've fractured the grass growth and you've fractured the grass and the root system in that green. So the easiest way to do it and quickly, whether it's a pitch mark repairer or a tee, is getting down there and getting that grass back to level. Because it's a hole, you've got to try and get it back up and push it in, get it back up to where it was to allow that grass to not die. Last one, divots.
Actually, just on that point though, my understanding as well is that if a pitch mark isn't repaired if a pitch mark is repaired straight away, it generally repairs itself within, I think, 48 hours. Whereas if you don't repair it, it can take 6 weeks. Does that sound about right to you?
That's pretty much almost spot on. Yeah, normally 48 to 72 hours for a repaired pitch mark. If a pitch mark is not fixed, it takes 4 to 6 weeks for that grass the root system to recover. It's the same as then you move that into now a divot. So when obviously, see, it's very different in Australia because we have sand buckets. We carry around sand with us as golfers. We have to take sand buckets with us. Whereas over here, you get the sod and you put it back on top. But unfortunately, a lot of people just don't do that. When you hit a shot and you make a divot, the duty of care on the golf course is to get the divot and come back and try and put in the direction that you've hit it and try and put it back in and then stomp on it and get it nice and level. Now, if you do that, then and then obviously the greenkeepers and then the rain and then the walking on it, it gets it nice and level. It helps the root system of that divot to actually reattach itself to the ground. If you don't repair that divot and you leave it open, that will also take 5 to 7 weeks to recover and come back to a normal piece of grass. Which you think about how many golfers are in the world, how many golfers are at your golf club, how many golf shots are hit per day. That's a lot of divots that if they're not repaired can do a lot of damage to your golf course.
Now, obviously, we're talking about junior golf and we're talking about etiquette within junior golf. That's a role, those 3 roles that you've got there. That can be a parent's role to tell the junior to do that.
Yes.
But also, if and we will come to speed of play, but if speed of play is an issue, if a group is not particularly quick, then that's an opportunity whereby the parent can go, you go on and play your next shot, I'll sort that out for you.
Yes.
And the competitions that I run, although caddying, like I mentioned, is not necessarily allowed, I'm certainly never going to turn around to a parent or a supporter or whatever and say you're not allowed to do that, because that to me is maintaining the golf course, and that's something which I think is important and a message which should be passed on to all juniors.
Good point you make there, because I'll give you a great example, I did this last week. So I went to regional qualifying for the Open Championship at Fulford last week, which I didn't get through, unfortunately. I played poor golf. The 3rd hole was a par 3. Now, I hit my tee shot into the left bunker. My other playing partner hit it long into the long rough, and then my other playing partner missed the bunker on the right. We've gone and found the player's ball at the back of the green. He's found it, hit his shot. I've then hit my bunker shot, put it onto the green. So I've walked up with my putter, marked my ball, and I'm standing on the right-hand side of the green adjacent to my 3rd player. He's hit his shot and dumped it into the bunker from the chip shot. He's then hit his bunker shot then out onto the green. His ball was the furthest from the hole. So I took the initiative I didn't have to, as I'm a player trying to play for the Open Championship to get the final stage of qualifying to get a spot. I said to him, leave it, I'll rake it, you get your putter, get up on the green, get yourself lined up for a putt, and start having a putt because you're first in play. I raked my opponent's bunker, a guy that I'm trying to beat. I raked his bunker purely out of speed of play because he was the first person to have a putt because he was furthest from the hole. I did that purely to help that speed of play etiquette to keep moving.
And an alternative option with that could have been whereby you said to him, you rake the bunker, I'll putt first because
yes,
for speed. So there are ways whereby you can speed up play even within the traditional furthest away plays first. There are ways whereby you can work out that.
Ready golf, as they call it.
Yeah, absolutely. We will come to that. We mentioned about safety as far as where you stand and things like that. What about where to put your bags and things like that? Because you may not. So I'll give an example. I was in an event once whereby a person parked their bag directly behind the hole, about 4 yards off the green, the back of the green, whereby someone was chipping, and if they'd hit it 4 yards past it, they would have hit his bag. Right. And I said to him, it's probably advisable, bearing in mind the tee is on the opposite side of the green, go and put your bag around the opposite side of the green. So just simple things like that, whereby know where the next tee is, know where the best position is to put your bag is to avoid it being hit and also speed of play for the next hole. These are things which are they things which you teach in your lessons? Do you teach golf etiquette and that type of thing?
Yeah, so I teach the kids when they're approaching the green. So when they've hit their shot, and they might be either on the green or in the bunker, looking at when they're 50, 60 yards from the hole and from the green, they're looking to see where the next tee is in adjacent to where their golf ball is. So if they get to the green and they're not, say their ball's on the green, 50, 60 yards out, they're looking to see where the next tee is. I tell them to go straight to where the back corner, the best corner to where the next tee is, direction of the next tee is, and put their bag. But they put their bags between 3 to 5 yards off the back of the green, away from the green. Then walk onto the green, go straight to your ball and get ready to putt. That's getting them to get a focus of looking and looking at their surroundings of where they are, but also then taking into account where other golf balls lie. Because if there's a golf ball near, say, the back of the green where the next tee is, then they've got to start thinking about, okay, well, I want to sit in that direction, but there's a golf ball there. Well, where's the next best possible spot? Okay, well, I'll put it near, but I'll put it out of sight, out of line, so the golf bag isn't in that player's eyesight or in their shot. That also really does help speed of play, because you think about when then you've got 3 players, whether they're adults, ladies, juniors, we're talking golfers in general here. They finish the hole, they've put the flag in. 9 times out of 10, you've got a group waiting on the fairway, waiting for you to clear the green. The last thing you want to see from the fairway is a player walking back to the front of the green to put their club in their golf bag and then take their time to walk around the green to get to the next tee. That's, I think, etiquette, bad etiquette, but also duty of care on the speed of play aspect, but also duty of care on if someone took a shot 3 seconds too early, because as soon as they saw the flag go in, they might have been standing over their golf ball thinking, okay, the green's clear. Not taking into account that there was a golf bag at the front of the green. All of a sudden, they hit their shot, bang, something could happen drastically.
Okay. So one other point on that as well, when we're talking about parents watching golf as well, I've seen it, I'm sure you've seen it as well, whereby the parents will walk behind the players and they'll stand 30 yards in front of the green, watching the green put out, kind of thing. And then they're in that same spot whereby you've said where that golf bag is, that's where the parents are. And you may be in a situation whereby the player behind knows that they are not going to try and reach the green, but they're trying to think to themselves, well, I'm going to leave it 40 yards short of the green, but they can't play that shot because the players are stood there.
Exactly right. So then all of a sudden they're waiting on the fairway. That group behind them, they might catch them from behind. All of a sudden you've got 3 groups on the one hole.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the example whereby you were playing the other day, and you mentioned the word looking for a golf ball. What's the golf etiquette as far as looking for a golf ball is concerned? Do you completely ignore your playing partners? I'm not going to help you look for your golf ball. What's the etiquette as far as that is concerned?
Well, if you're not playing great and you want to try and beat them and they're like close to your score, then you can leave them alone. No, I'm not saying that at all. No, look, so the etiquette of the game, obviously you've got the R&A rules and the rules of golf. So the rules of golf clearly state that a player's got 3 minutes to look for a golf ball. Once that 3 minutes is up, then their provisional ball that they hit is then deemed in play. Now, the rules have changed in the ways of, I mean, it's quite difficult these days to try and understand the rules. They're sometimes quite complicated, but these days you can't actually declare a golf ball lost. So, but the easiest way, if you know deep down in your own gut that you know that the ball is pretty much, I don't want to find it, or B, I don't want to play it, then you can say to your playing partners, oh, don't worry about it. Now, that's not declaring the ball lost. That's just telling your playing partners, hey, don't worry about going to look for it. But you've got 3 minutes to find their ball. Out of etiquette for the game, you help your playing partner look for the golf ball. If you don't, if a situation comes 2 holes later that your ball's now being looked for, I'll tell you now, sometimes out of 10, they won't come and help you, which then just fuels your anger and you get upset because they could have helped you. So a little bit of to and fro. It's a two-way street.
And also a little bit of common sense then. If you've gone way left and you're looking for your golf ball, another one's gone way right, they're looking for their golf ball, then don't walk all the way over there to try and find that. Or you found yours, but you have a 60-yard walk to see whether you can find it and then 60-yard back. There's common sense as well.
That's common sense. Speed of play stuff, that is. Right.
Competition etiquette then. So playing in a competition, I think we did cover this a little bit in previous podcasts, but one of the things which I mentioned earlier, the fact that I send out an email to say what the competition is, and one of the things I say is arrive 45 minutes early. So get yourself registered, get yourself to the practice green, know when your tee time is.
Yes.
And because you know when your tee time is, you should not be late for your tee time. Now I've seen that before, and I've seen it with juniors where the parents of experienced golfers, I mean single figure handicap golfers, and I think to myself, you should know better.
Yeah, and they're rocking up 15 minutes before the tee time.
No, they're rocking up as the tee time is teeing off. So it's not. I can understand it. 15 minutes before tee time is great, but as the tee, so the tee time is 1 o'clock. They're arriving at 30 seconds to 1 o'clock.
Does happen, Steve. Unfortunately.
Absolutely, yeah. Now scoring, we do scoring with I think we did cover this as well about how to score and how to mark your cards and things like that.
But when to score?
When to score? Okay, so that's the question I was going to raise to you. Etiquette, as far as that is concerned, you finish the hole. Yep. When do you start writing the scores on your scorecard?
The next tee. Get off the green. Get your club back in the bag. Get off the green. Get away from the green. Because as I said before, 9 times out of 10, you will probably find yourself in a situation where there's a group waiting for you on the fairway. So get the ball into the hole, get off the green, put the club away, start walking straight away. Get to the next tee and then go, right, guys, what do we have? Still fresh in the minds. But what do we have? Then you can go, right, let's do the scores, let's double check. Then if we need to count through them, we'll count through them. But you're on the next tee. So that's when I would personally do it.
And if there's any discrepancies with the scores, that's the time to sort it out. And
absolutely.
Yeah. Now this has happened, and I'm sure it's happened in competitions you've been at, whereby there's been a disagreement with a score. Someone has said, I've got a 5 on that hole, and they've said, no, you had a 6, and they've gone through it. And even when they've gone through it, they've still come to a disagreement. How do you sort that out in a etiquette is the name of this podcast. How do you sort it out in a way whereby it's calm, shall we say?
If we're talking about juniors, unfortunately, this is where the parents have got to stay calm. Whereas unfortunately, you get a lot of parents who have knee-jerk reactions and just go straight in for the kill. It's a hard one because I'll tell you now, the reputation of cheating, it's a hard one to get rid of. If you're a player and you either knowingly or unknowingly say you've got a score and it's incorrect, unfortunately, the rumour mills in today's golf goes 3,000 times as quick. So, look, honesty is the best game, but if you're unsure of scores, then go with your playing partner, you go shot by shot, by shot, by shot, and you paint a picture of the previous hole. That's the easiest way to do it because there's no accusations, no one's getting heated, no one's getting upset. You're just explaining, you're painting the picture of facts. And I think it's a hard one because kids won't do that. Kids don't have the guts to do that, whereas parents do. But the parents don't do it calmly and paint pictures. They just do it knee-jerk. And they get in and say, no.
Right, pace of play. Then we mentioned this. How do you speed up pace of play? And I'm sorry, I'm going to point the finger at you again. Professional golfers have got a lot to answer for as far as pace of play is concerned.
Oh, do we ever? And unfortunately, I'm not one of those players because unfortunately, for me, I'm probably one of the fastest players in PGA. And if I don't play golf and get around in under 4 hours 10, then I'm quite upset. But unfortunately, yes, PGA pros and professional golf does put a stigma on slow play. They don't paint a good picture for juniors or for even adults. And staying on the green with books and doing the extended aim point and talking to their caddy for 10 minutes about one shot, and then look, per hole, you've got different length of time per hole, which is stipulated in around a golf. Every golf club's different. Every golf course is different lengths. Par 3 is 12 minutes. Par 4 is 14 minutes. Par 5 is 15 minutes. That's your normal rough kind of guide to playing a hole. On an average golf course, you should be around in about 4 hours 20, which is 2 hours and 10 both sides. Longer golf courses, you might get 4 hours 15, which then 2 hours 15 each 9, which then gives you 4.5. But the one thing that I've done differently with my tour versus other golf tours that do plays for speed of play aspect is that I play Stableford, which is curved a lot of time. And look, I'm not pointing fingers because obviously, you play medal in your tour, and I'm not having a go at anybody about what junior golf should play or how they should do it. And obviously, you've got handicapped kids and then you've got non-handicapped kids. So what do you do? But with my handicapped kids, I do Stableford, and the dramatic change in the speed of play, my juniors, both under 13s, 15s, and 18s, have all averaged under 4 hours 20 for 18 holes, which is mightily impressive.
Yeah, we do a par plus 5 rule, which cut it immediately. Okay, pace of play though. Right, one thing which you mentioned, 2 words you mentioned, and I had this this was brought up 2 years ago, whereby I was stood on the tee and I said to the 3 ball, okay, ready golf from now onwards.
Yep.
And I turned to them and I said, do you know what ready golf is? And one of the lads, credit to him, turned back to him and went, no, I don't. So explain to me what ready golf is.
So ready golf is, say, for instance, you got the honor system, which is the honor system is normally on a tee, the player with the lowest score in the previous hole goes first. When you're trying to keep good pace of play, ready golf means the first person that gets to the tee that wants to be ready and wants to hit off, just go. Like, don't hold back. Get onto the tee, get your driver out or get your club out you want to hit, do your yardage with your laser and hit the shot. You don't have to wait for the lowest score in the previous hole. That's ready golf. Now, on the fairway, you could have kids or players that their balls are quite adjacent or one might be further away from the other, but you've got the kid who's further away from the hole not ready and the kid or the player who's close to the hole is ready, has got the club out and ready to go. If you're happy to at the start of the round say, hey, look, ready golf, as long as everyone's safe and everyone's in correct areas and etiquette in the ways of where their bags are and where they're adjacent to the balls, then that player that might be 10, 15 yards up the fairway over on the right-hand side, just go. Because then they might be hit the shot and ready. By the time they've hit their shot and put the club away, the person or the junior back 15 yards back will be ready to go and hit their shot. Then all of a sudden, once they hit their shot, they're both walking at tandem up the fairway. So that's speed of play. And then when you get to the green, you're not necessarily always, say, waiting for the ball that's furthest from the hole. You might get a player that's closer to the hole, but it's up on the green first, that's happy to go and get their putt done. Then they can go up. If they're not on any lines or not going to affect another player's ball or putt, they're happy to go up, put their ball down, get the flag out, hit the putt, and then be flag holder. You're dramatically increasing that play, which then I'm a fast walker. So when I'm walking and I'm sometimes 20, 30 yards in front, instinctively, subconsciously, what I'm doing, without me even really doing it, is I'm pulling them along a bit quicker myself. So I'm actually doing it without me even knowing. I'm actually pulling them along faster than they normally would, but I'm making them notice that I'm a bit quicker in the ways of my decision making's quicker. I'm ready to go quicker. Then they might start looking at it and going, oh, okay, right, okay, well, I better just lift my pace then. I'm helping them speed up, which then minimizes my group from being watched, put on the clock, and then penalized.
When I was a junior golfer many years ago, I did a simple thing with mine. I noticed the fact that I wasn't particularly quick, so I just went, instead of having 2 practice swings, I cut it to 1 practice swing. Suddenly I was 10 seconds quicker than I would have been. Simple things like that. Okay, so you mentioned about being ready for your shot, and if you're ready to play. Now, if there might be instances whereby you might not be ready to play, but you can do all your preparation in that period while that person is getting themselves ready. So you can walk the green, you can see where the best angles are. So therefore, when you get to the point whereby you are ready to go, you don't have to go through your pre-shot routine because you've done it all already.
That's correct.
Is that something you teach to the kids as well?
Oh, absolutely. Like being ready for the shot, both mentally, physically, and having the club in your hand, is very important, because while say you've got another kid or another player that might be further away, when you're waiting for them to hit the shot, go through your whole mental sphere, right? The sphere that you're in, and I say the mental pocket that you've created for yourself. You're going through laser, right? I've got the distance, right? I'm working out, blah, 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 blah. The distance up, downhill, across, okay, wind, bunkers, right? I'm looking at that. I pull my club. Now, by the time I pull my club, I turn around and go, oh, right, okay, he's hit. Right, I can walk straight into the ball and go through my pre-shot routine. Then by the time you've hit, they've started walking, put your club in the bag, and you've started walking. All of a sudden, you're actually walking up the fairway together. So, yes, be ready in the ways of, if it's not your shot, start your routine. If it's not your shot, start your process of how you hit the shots. Because if you do that every fairway for 18 holes, say 14 fairways because of par 3s, you do that and you save 10, 12, 15 seconds every shot, add that up, it's got to be at least 20, 25 minutes.
Right, we talked a little bit about etiquette within a club, clothing and things like that as well. What about a word which isn't necessarily associated with golf, and it's one which I'm glad that it's not, but it is with other sports, and that's gamesmanship. And just explain for people who aren't aware, what's gamesmanship, and in some respects, why isn't it a part of golf?
So I think gamesmanship, obviously, gamesmanship and also like sportsmanship, it's kind of, again, 2 different words, but they're kind of connected in the ways of gamesmanship. I see gamesmanship as that if your playing partner hits a good shot, makes a good putt, good putt, give him a fist pump. Yeah, I do that with pros. Yeah, and you see, you have a guy that hits it out of a bunker and you puts it to a foot or even holds it. Yeah, and I just stand there and give a massive thumbs up and go, mate, great shot, mate, that was epic. So you kind of got to see game for game. If I see good shots, even as a pro playing against pros, and you're trying to beat them, but if I acknowledge, if I see a really good shot, and which is impressive to watch and impressive to see, there is absolutely no reason not to say, "Hey, great shot, well done." But also, then obviously, the sportsmanship aspect is that if you go, "Oh, that was a bad shot, wasn't it?" You don't want to be coming across as a bit of a rude player.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line, but obviously, hit a poor shot. At the same time, you don't let them say anything at all if they hit a poor shot.
Yeah, right. Okay. We could cover rules, we could cover the etiquette of rules and things like that, but we are going to do a podcast on rules because that's a massive subject.
That needs a whole podcast for itself. Rules.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Right. I think we've pretty much all covered most of what we can as far as etiquette is concerned. I mean, there are other things as well. You know, the etiquette on the driving range, the etiquette in and around clubhouses, the etiquette of clubs back towards juniors, because you know, I've been in competitions, I've been at clubs whereby, you know, we mentioned about raking bunkers, you know, whereby the club will immediately blame the junior, you know, and you think to yourself, well, actually, I've been on the golf course and that bunker wasn't raked before we even got there, you know, and this is the first group, you know, so the
members that are first to complain. I think, and I've been a golf pro for now, working in a golf club for now 20 years. The members that are first to complain are the first people to not rake a bunker, fix a pitch mark, or fix a divot. They're the first ones not to do it.
Yeah, all shout for. Right, let's get on to the junior golf news then. We're going to talk about the Ace Tour as well, and a special event you got coming up next year. But just a quick mention then for some of the events which took place on Progress Junior Golf over the last month or so. We have the Midlands Pairs competition, which took place at Brampton Heath. I think we've got the photo of the winner, which was Liam Greeno and Thomas Gotch. This is the pair of them. Nice little photo there. And so Liam on the left there and Thomas on the right. They carded 6 gross birdies in the round. Better ball pair score of 1 under par 71, won by a couple of shots. The net prize went to Barney Williams and Elwyn Williams. Net 54, which I think was 18 under par. So seriously good score for them. So well done to those two. Then we had a Wonder Series event at Solihull Golf Club. Actually, I've got a photo of Elwyn because he played in that event. That's Elwyn there. That was a record field on Father's Day, so a really nice day for the dads to go out there and watch some of their boys and girls play in the competition. Record field 25. That took place at Solihull Golf Club. And then we also had the Warwickshire Junior Festival of Golf, which took place at Stratford Oaks. Boys 18-hole competition, girls 18-hole competition, boys and girls 9-hole competition. We also had a guest competition as well. And I'm pleased to say that the winner of the guest competition with a 7 under par net 64 was someone called Tesney Burrows.
Oh, she did it. I was actually just going to say it wasn't Tesney, was it?
It was Tesney,
that's
yes.
Brilliant.
Yes. So she was, as you can imagine, she was well chuffed.
Well done, Tesney. Well done.
Absolutely, yeah. And a massive mention as well to the Ladies European Tour, because we had a long conversation with them. They've got an event at Centurion down in Hertfordshire in August, and we came to an agreement whereby they were going to give tickets to all the juniors which played in that event. So the kids getting free for the event anyway. So they gave us 2 adult tickets for both the Saturday and the Sunday, so the final 2 days. But that's only half of the prize, because they also said all the juniors which come on the Sunday will be part of the presentation ceremony at the end of the competition.
How good is that?
So last year's winner was Leonie Maguire. I think the previous year was Bronte Law. So some really good players.
You know how to pull strings, don't you, Steve?
Absolutely, yes. So, and I think on the Saturday we're going to have a golf clinic with an LET Pro as well on the Saturday. So if you go on the Saturday, you can't make the Sunday. Hopefully, got a nice little special prize for you on the Sunday as well. But massive thanks there to the Ladies European Tour for that. And then just this Saturday gone, I did mention we had a competition on Saturday. It was at Nelcott Hall. Have you ever played Nelcott Hall, Aaron? I might have mentioned.
Oh, I haven't, mate. Great name.
So that's where they hold the British Par 3 Championships there. Which,
oh, yes. Okay.
Yes. So previous winners of that are people like Tommy Fleetwood. I think Paul Laurie's won it in the past. So some seriously good players playing that.
Well,
hasn't he? Isn't he won that? Robert Rock.
Who's that? Sorry.
Robert Rock.
Yeah, Robert Rock won it. I think he shot something silly. I mean, something like 8 or 9 under par. Or, yeah, some really good players have won that. Anyway, but there was under 16, under 18 category. The best players in some of those categories go through to a final qualifier, adult final qualifier, and if they win that, they actually play in the British Par 3 Championship with a tour professional. So, and the winner of that competition was this young lad here, and of course that young lad there is Miles Varney. Which is
Jodi's
son. So really pleased for him because he had a really good day. So he qualifies and gets to go and play in that that qualifier there. So, but a really, really special day, really nice day. I mean, it's a seriously tough par 3 course, but equally good fun as well. So those were the events on Progress Junior Golf. We've got an event this Sunday coming up at Hollywood Golf Club, and then big summer series in Warwickshire. I'm running opens at Alton, the Welcome, Ladbroke, Coventry, Shirley, Stonebridge, Maxstoke, and then at the end of the summer we've got the Warwickshire Summer Masters, which is at Nuneaton Golf Club. Big competition coming up at the end of this month in Ireland at a place called Loch Earn, the Champion of Champions. Now I've got 6 players who are going to be representing Progress Junior Golf in it. So I'll just mention them, and then you can tell me who's representing you guys. So Harper Raya, Sam Price, George Hoey, Luke Boyle, Isabel Toon, and Amelia Sadler are all going over to Ireland and going to play in that event. So that's going to be a really special competition. As you mentioned earlier, you were there last year, and it's a magnificent result and a really good competition. So who's representing you guys then?
So I've got 3 boys in the under 18s. I've got Louis Brett, Charles Calvert, and Ethan Jeff. Ethan Jeff actually finished 6th last year and got the invite back this year. And then I've got under 13 girls. I've got Lila Underdown. So I've got 4 girls, 4 kids playing in that one. But also as well, I've actually got, which she flies out actually on Saturday. I've got Olivia Harland, and one of my elite juniors. She's going off to America to play in the world final of the Faldo Futures.
Fantastic.
But she won the national final at the Belfry last August.
Yes.
And got a start in the world final over in Lake Torrey Pines over in Florida. And she flies out on Saturday. So I've got 5 kids going global. So looking forward to that. And I'll be over there as well over in Ireland. I'm going over there to watch my 4 kids, so we'll be able to. We might even be able to do a bit of a podcast over there, Steve.
Well, we will be doing a podcast on that because we're going to be doing one on elite junior golf. So we're hoping to be talking to Lottie Wode's coach, who the fortune to do with Luke Bone, who we did the coverage of the England under 18 championship. So hopefully we're going to do something with Lottie. We'll do something about the champion of championship. We'll do something about that. That'll be for another podcast though. But you mentioned about global. So we've got a big event coming up next year. But before that, you've got an event coming up this weekend. What have you got this weekend?
So I've got this weekend
on my kids' course. I've got the Ace Academy Ryder Cup, Team Europe versus Team USA. So all my junior comps throughout the year, I have 8 order of merit qualifying events. So last year, the 8 events, the top 24 kids qualified for this year's Ryder Cup. I picked 2 captains, and then they picked their own teams. So I had those 2 captains pick their own teams, and it's now this Saturday. We kick off at 9 a.m. We play round 1. We play pairs better ball over 6 holes. Round 2, we have the pairs foursomes, which is the alternate shot for the 6 holes, and then we have a small break, and then we go into 12 single matches. So I try and do it exactly like the real thing, but instead of over 3 days, I do it over about 4 hours.
Sounds like good fun, that does, though. But the event next year, then just explain a little bit more about that, because it's definitely going ahead, isn't it?
It is definitely going ahead,
Steve. It's really, really cool after the great success that the first season of the ACE Junior Tour in 2026. We are going to Turkey for the ACE Junior Turkish Open at Cornelia Diamond Resort. 3 rounds of competition plus a practice round. So if the under 13s, under 15s, under 18 kids, handicapped kids will play a 54 hole Stableford event, and then the under 10, the non-handicapped kids will play 3 rounds of 9 holes medal play over the week. So that's March 6 to 11 next year. Which, yes, Steve, it is outside of school holidays, but I wasn't going to win in any way possible of doing it. But the entries are still coming in. Entries will stay open for a while still. So any of the kids that play with your tour, Progress Junior Golf, and any kids that are around the country, all the information can be found on my website, the acegolfacademy.com. Under Golf Travel, the Junior Tour page as well has got all the information. Any kids are more than welcome. Any junior is more than welcome to come play.
And also, forgot to mention as well, you've got your last event of the ACE Tour as well coming up on July the 24th. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Our fifth and final Order of Merit event at Barnard Castle on 24th of July. So far, I've got 52 kids entered, which is pretty much a full field. I reckon I've got 2 more spots, I think. But yeah, so I've got that coming up, and then we play the final, which will be here at Blackwell Grange on August 12th, where I'll be doing a FedEx Cup style, the old school FedEx Cup now, not the new one, but a FedEx Cup style where I've got 4 or 5 kids in each age groups that will play for the Order of Merit Championship, but will be like a 4-3-2-1 point start. And then the kids that didn't get in that top 4 or top 5 will still play. Everyone's invited to the final, and they will play for a reserve final. So competition and all. But a big thing as well, which I've done, which I think I will announce, that my Barnard Castle event, which is the 5th one on the ACE Junior Tour, will be a qualifier for the Justin Rose Daily Telegraph event over Portugal, where Justin Rose sponsors that event for the final. So my qualifier, my last round will be a qualifier to get into the final of the Justin Rose event over in Portugal.
All right, fantastic. Right, next podcast, as we mentioned, we're going to be covering on elite junior golf. We're actually hopefully as well going to be getting someone on who's part of the Junior Ryder Cup setup as well. So someone talking about that as well. So talking some really big events there. Actually, just one final mention as well. You mentioned earlier about open qualifying. Just want to say a big well done to Fraser Jones, who's a golfer I've known from when he was a junior. I've got some photos of him when he was about 19 years old, and I think he's now 18, 19, and he's qualified to play over at Portrush.
Oh, wow.
So really, really well done to him. I sent his parents a message to say well done, and they were absolutely over the moon, as you can imagine. So good luck for Fraser out over in Ireland, and Seb Cave as well, who's the former Warwickshire Junior boys champion. He's qualified as well. So some seriously good young golfers have made it. You know, it's nice to see the young golfers qualify for the Open, isn't it, Aaron?
Absolutely. Yes. And it's great to see.
I mean, great experience for them. Like, and I had a really good player that 2 players actually that I've actually played golf with, and one of them I actually played final qualifying 3 years ago with him down at Hollandwell, and his name's OJ Farrell, and he qualified as well as a guy that I played golf with on the 2020 Pro Tour and a few events, George Blore. And they're in their 20s, and they're absolutely brilliant players, very long players, long hitters as well. But it's going to be so cool to watch because I've played Portrush, so it's going to be really cool to see them play it, but also see the course, after I've experienced playing it as well. But yeah, hopefully one day, Steve, hopefully I can do a podcast and we can do the podcast live from the Open Championship.
Absolutely, yes. Fantastic. Right, I really hope you've enjoyed this podcast this evening then on junior etiquette or golf etiquette in junior golf, but not just juniors as well, for adult golf. I'm pretty certain some adults have learned a few bits and bobs about etiquette.
Where to stand, no, where not to stand.
That's it, absolutely, yeah. But we shall see you next month, and if we don't see you before, then have a good week. All right, see you soon.